It was, I have to admit, the transition was really rough just because of the fact that, you don't really know what to expect, and the, they're trying to give you, some training to help you, but it's like, you definitely need more than a day, and I think you need.
You're listening to the 7 Echo Podcast, brought to you by 7 Eagle Group, the place where we highlight inspiring and interesting United States military veterans who have found a successful civilian career after trading in their uniforms.
All right, this is Jay Sheehan with the 7 Echo Podcast, and I'm here with Gary Hayslip from Softbank. And Gary's a veteran, Chief Information Security Officer. And Gary, thanks for taking the time to speak with us today.
Hey, I'm happy to be here. Thanks for asking.
Excellent. So, Gary, I know you were in the Navy for a little over 12 years. Could you tell us a little bit about what you did there?
Yeah, I mean, actually, I did a full 20. I just don't really list a full 20 on my resume because, anything really beyond 10 years just gets stupid, when you're dealing with civilians, honestly. So it does look kind of shorter, but yeah, I did a full 20. Now my time, I was a fire controlman, so I worked on advanced weapon systems. I worked on pretty much almost all of them that were not Aegis. One thing about being fire controlman in the Navy is that there's almost no shore duty roles for you. So I spent almost all of my time on warships and on deployment, quite a lot of it. What's interesting though is that the Navy trains you, when you are working on weapon systems, you actually get the whole system, and so I'd be in school 3 months, 6 months, 8 months at a time, learning the whole system, electronics, computers, heat exchangers, generators, just really, so it was really fascinating. But, my love has always been computers, so it was eventually over time, I kind of transitioned away from the electronics and more into the computers.
That's excellent. Yeah. As an Army guy myself, we've always been kind of jealous of what the Navy and the Air Force people get for training. But we're not going to throw stones today. This is a nice podcast. So, so what was your last position with the Navy then?
I retired as a chief petty officer, as an E7.
Awesome. And so when you transitioned out, what do you think were some of your drawbacks and some of your advantages in the market?
I think some of the drawbacks per se was the fact that when I found the transitioning training that they kind of give you, what the enlisted get and what the officers get is totally different. And just doing one day's worth of transitioning and, hey, this is how you write a resume, and the guy I'm talking to has no idea on how to write tech resumes, and that's what I'm going into is the tech field. It was, I have to admit, the transition was really rough just because of the fact that you don't really know what to expect, and they're trying to give you some training to help you, but it's like, you definitely need more than a day, and I think you need, I think you need some, a lot of the, and honestly, this was back in 2007 when I was retiring, a lot of the services, a lot of the things that they have now that are available, to service members when they're transitioning, we didn't have back then. So, unless you had done some serious pre-planning ahead of time, you had no idea what you were stepping into, honestly, and that's a lot of what scared me was just that I got a wife, I've got 2 sons, with special needs. And I'm like, okay, I'm leaving something that I've been at for the last 20 years and a whole unknown piece of where I'm going to go, how I'm going to go ahead and help take care of my family. The one thing I did have going for me, basically started working on my bachelor's degree, several years before. And I knew since I was going to be in the IT field and in the security field, I had started working on my certifications and stuff like several years before as well. With that in mind, I had already started doing a ton of pre-planning. And so, I mean, so for me, that was, that was definitely a good thing that I had a lot of that, already, kind of done. My thing was I just didn't really know how to relate it to, to the civilian world yet. So, I'd earned a whole bunch of certifications and had a bachelor's degree and was doing, a lot of stuff on my own in the community at the time, going to ISSA and ISACA and all these different, community events and networking and meeting people. But I was just kind of figuring it out and flailing as I was going along. I didn't really have any kind of a book saying, as you transition, you should do this. I just kind of figured it out, and it was just through a lot of just asking questions of people who had already gotten out ahead of me, and then just, kind of trial and error.
Yeah, you said a lot in that right there.
Sorry.
No, I mean, it's fantastic because it's something that I touch upon a lot of times in my other podcasts. The transitioning programs are so different for every branch, and they can be different for the same branch.
Oh,
Depending
yeah.
on where you're stationed. I mean, one branch, one base might not talk to the next one in the next state over, or even in the same state if there's two bases there. So that's very lacking to me. That communication and interdepartmental communication almost non-existent at times. The other thing too that you said was some of them are too short, right? They've changed that since you and I were in. They've gotten a little bit better on their transitioning soldiers and sailors, and, the CAPS program, whatever branch you're in. But one of the things I know from my own experience leaving was we didn't really take full advantage of it a lot of times. If you're not doing a full 20, you might have a better grasp on what you're going out into in the world, because maybe you were only in for the last 6 years or 8 years, and you've still kept in pretty decent contact with the outside world. But I think once you do that 16, 18, 20-year mark, you're almost institutionalized, and it's kind of hard to figure out what next is. And the younger soldiers and sailors and service members, I think, speaking from my own personal experience, we never took full advantage of it, right? It was one of these, hey, can you just check this box for me so I can get out of here and go finish packing up my stuff for my my PCS or my TDY or whatever I'm doing. So that's kind of lacking in that too. But if you were to talk to yourself, say at year 10, figuring you were getting out, knowing what you know now, what would it be a good career path? So say they wanted to get into IT or tech or cyber or one of those fields, how should they go about that? Maybe any specific certifications you would suggest better than others, or organizations, that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I mean, it was, I think, the biggest thing I probably would have been recommending was getting involved in the community a lot earlier. Whether it's going to Black Hat or DEF CON or B-Sides, whether it's, going to, monthly meetings with the various professional organizations, within your area. And the reason is that, getting involved in the community really kind of helps you fine tune, because cybersecurity, like for me, going into cybersecurity, originally I was looking at IT. While I was in the military, I had filled the CIO role multiple times, and then I got into basically kind of like a CISO role, as an IAM, for a couple of major commands. But not really understanding on the civilian side, what does that look like? You may think, hey, I can go ahead and do an IAM role for a 12,000 person command, so I should be able to step over and do that for a business on the outside. But you don't know how very different it is, and also very similar, in many ways, and you're not going to know that unless you're involved with the community and you start talking with people and you find mentors who are over on the civilian side, and and you start preparing, for that transition. One of the biggest changes for me when I left the military and came over to the civilian side was that, hey, they didn't have to listen to me. We're on the DoD side, everything is black and white, dealing with risk. You're following this DoD directive or you're not. You're certified in this or you're not. On the civilian side, it's all gray. It's we'll do this, or hey, the business wants to do that, or hey, who are you? Why do we need a CISO? What? Why does this matter? So it's a very different culture. It's a very different way, in which they do security. I work at a financial services organization where it's very stringent, but even then, it is different than, say, when I was my last military command that I was at. And so it's you need to be involved. And I would have said get involved in the community early, so it can start helping you find things that you like. And so you can start kind of figuring out, because once you find what areas you like, then you can figure out what certs you want to do, and things that apply. So instead of just doing a whole bunch of crap and then you find out later 80% of that really doesn't apply to where you eventually end up at in your career, case in point, I had like 18 or 20 certifications, and really I only keep 4 current because the rest of the crap I just don't need anymore. But it's like, at the time when I started, I really didn't know what I needed. So I kind of did a little bit of everything, The second part of your question as to like certs or where to start. Honestly, for me, if you're working in IT or working in security, I would always say you're looking at Network Plus and Security Plus to begin with, just because you need to understand how networks work and how they're built and the protocols that they run on and how data flows through them and stuff. You just need to understand, the basic kind of building blocks. And then the Security Plus piece is very broad. Some of it's simple, but again, there's a lot of components there that the other more in-depth certifications build on. And so I always, recommend Network Plus and Security Plus, and then on top of that, like for myself, I went in and did my Cisco certs because I was getting more into network engineering. I was a network architect, and I found doing my Cisco certs actually helped the Microsoft certs make more sense, which is kind of funny. And then as I got more into security, I kept my Cisco certs up for a while, just because I found really understanding large networks and how they're built and stuff like that actually helped me with security. It helped me understand how to not just protect networks, but how to break into them and where the blind spots would be and issues that you would have when you're running security teams and doing security on large organizations with multiple networks and stuff. And then of course, once you get into security, it really kind of depends on where you want to go. Eventually, you're going to probably do your CISSP just because it's kind of like the industry standard. But like myself, I keep my CISSP current. I keep my CISA current because I deal with a lot of audit. I deal with a lot of governance aspects. I have my C-risk that I keep current because I deal extensively in risk management, quite a lot. And now I've done several privacy certs that I keep current because I find at my level, as an executive at my level in cybersecurity, cybersecurity is really all about risk management. It's all about the management of risk, and it's about the management of the protection of data and assets within an organization. And much of that now is revolving around privacy. And so it's, you need to, once you get up at that kind of level where I'm at, where I'm dealing with boards and executive teams, I need to be able to speak their language from a business standpoint, and hence the reason why, even after I did my certs, and I had my bachelor's degree, when it was time for me to do my master's, I did an MBA, just because I knew cyber. So I wasn't really interested in getting a master's degree in cyber and something I already knew. But the MBA piece has paid dividends because you have to speak with executives, you have to speak with boards. They're the ones that are holding your budget. They're the ones that are holding your money to help you be an effective CISO and to be able to build your program and everything. So you need to be able to speak their language. You need to be able to understand what they want and how they're viewing you and your resources, and how you're protecting the organization or not, and what threats, are to the organization. And so it becomes really important, the more senior you get. So for me, if I look back, to where I was at, say in, 2000, when I retired in 2007, I'd already been working on all my stuff for several years. But about 2001, 2002 timeframe is when I really turned it on and built out a lab and was working on all kinds of certs and stuff. And what I would probably tell myself then was, instead of spreading out and trying to do so much stuff, get more involved with the community, find some mentors, kind of fine tune what you're doing, and don't expend so much time and resources trying to get certified on everything. Pick a couple of things that you like, that meet, what you like to do, that meet the kind of skill sets you have, and focus on those. And, vice trying to do a little bit of everything and just trying to shotgun it out there because you don't really know where you're going.
Yeah, I think we're all guilty of that when we're trying to go down the path and we're not sure which way to go.
Yeah.
Hey, let's just spread it out all over it, and
Well,
hopefully something will stick.
The clock's ticking. You see retirement coming, and you're sitting there, you're thinking, okay, I've got my degree, I'm working on my certs, and you got such a wide view of things that you could go do, but honestly, you're scared to death because you have no experience on the civilian side, so you don't know what it's like working, in a civilian company with a civilian team and stuff like that. But you're kind of guessing, and yeah,
Or
I mean,
hoping.
or hoping, and I definitely like, as you were talking about, some of the programs they have where you can actually leave 6 months and go over and actually get that experience before you transition, because you can use that time to see what changes you need to make, and what other, education, what other types of certs and stuff you can add before you fully transition.
Yeah, that skill bridge program, like I said, is just phenomenal. It's just, at times it's very difficult to maneuver. I'll just say it that way.
Yeah.
There's a lot of moving parts as usual. So with your company, is your company veteran friendly? Have a veterans program, or do they do a lot of hiring for veterans?
My company is based out of the UK, not in the United States, and then our headquarters is actually in London, and then we're kind of a sub company underneath Japan, of another company in Japan. And yeah, we are veteran friendly. The issue we run into, like with me when I'm building my teams, is that they're international. So I may only have a couple of people here in the U.S. Almost all of my stuff is, over in Japan, over in China, or over in the UK. So it's like, because I have to cover roughly offices in like 16 different countries. And so so the UK office, our headquarters, tends to have agreements with recruiting agencies there. And when I got roles that are here in the U.S., veterans typically is what I look for. In fact, I got one sitting right next to me right now.
That's what we love to hear. That's really a good thing. We're trying to help mash the needle in veteran employment. So it's always good to hear that a company is veteran friendly. And lastly, with your career transition, you didn't come right out working as a CISO, did you?
No.
You had to work your way up, right?
Yeah, it was. Well, for me, it was like when I transitioned, I actually worked civil service for a couple of years. I think a lot of us, when we transition, switching over to working civil service with the government, still kind of gives you that warm blanket kind of feeling, because it's still kind of a culture close enough to where what you just left. And so for me, I switched over and worked civil service for a number of years, and then basically, I guess you could say I cut that umbilical cord and just jumped, and fully left.
Coming out and not expecting to get that highest level position right out of the gate.
Yeah.
We all know that we have to do the work to get there, but sometimes we think, oh no, I've already been doing this for the last 8 years. I'm ahead of all these people. But as you said, maybe you're not up on data privacy or,
Yep.
risk tolerance from a company. There's a lot of things for us to learn on the civilian side that we don't really address in the military. So I was really touching on the fact of, paying those dues and how do they go about
In fact,
getting those entry level positions to get them to that next rung.
yeah, I mean, for me, I jumped over to civil service, and I was there for about 6 years and worked my way up to where I was I was basically a CISO running the security team and also running, the network team and reporting to the CIO. I was a GS-13, and then I went ahead and I left and went into private industry. For me, I think what's interesting for me was, I actually jumped over to working for the city of San Diego and working for the mayor's office, as their first CISO. And, and the city, like the city of San Diego is a $4 billion business. It's 12,000 employees, 40 plus departments. I mean, it's, 25 networks. I mean, it was massive, and they were doing huge smart city projects. And so I was brought in to build out a security program. And, and those 4 years that I was there, I thoroughly loved it, and learned a lot, that whole transition piece, learned how to basically shift my view on security, how to manage teams, did a lot of fish tacos and beer with my peers in the various departments, because they didn't have to listen to me. So I had to give them a reason to listen to me, and so I spent a lot of time taking people to lunch and then sitting and listening and taking notes and letting them talk, so I could figure out how I could serve them, because I had to build trust. I had to build the reason why I existed, why I needed budget, why I needed to grow my security team. And, and it was a good 4 years, because I mean, it helped to me to this day. It was that transition from being all government over to, full civilian. And it really helped me understand, as a CISO, that you are where you fit in the business and how you work with executives and the kind of services that you provide. And I had to get my hands dirty. I had to pay my dues. You get beat up a lot, but it's one of those things that, it isn't anything, coming from military, isn't anything new for us. I mean, we're used to going ahead and having to, take big issues, break them down into small pieces, put your head down and go to work. And, and we're used to pivoting when we need to make changes, because, the captain said he wants to do this now, or, the colonel says, nope, we're going this way now, and so we're used to those kind of changes, and so, I mean, and every one of my roles I've ever been in, I've worn 3 or 4 different hats at the same time. Again, it's, military, we're used to doing that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So, I think the big thing is, for people that are transitioning is, hey, don't let it overwhelm you. It's just going to be a little different, but you're going to find once you start doing it and you're working with people and you're working with teams, or you're working with, within your office, that a lot of the work is the same. A lot of the, responsibilities and stuff that you have to do are the same. You still have a chain of command in which you have to follow. You still have, deliverables in which you need to get done, and, it's just a little different. It's called something different, and military, we're used to moving from command to command, jumping from culture to culture, joining different teams. So this is just something, new, but it's the same way it's not, and so don't let it overwhelm you. Accept it as this is just a new PCS move. This is just a new change, a new environment. You got a new team to go ahead and work with.
I think something you just said earlier was pretty important too, was you don't have to have all the answers, but you have to listen. Right?
Yep.
Basically, and that helps establish and build rapport and trust. So that's an important takeaway, I think, for everybody involved. So, Gary, I really appreciate taking the time with us today, and we look forward to having a follow-up conversation sometime soon.
Oh, definitely.
All right,
Have a good day.
Thank you.
Bye.